Part 1. Tonglen in Daily Life. All sentient beings without exception have bodhicitta, which is the inherent tenderness of the heart, its natural tendency to love and care for others. But over time, in order to shield ourselves from feeling pain and discomfort, we have erected solid barriers that cover up our tenderness and vulnerability. As a result, we often experience alienation, anger, aggression, and a loss of meaning in our lives, both individually and on a global scale as well. Somehow, in the pursuit of happiness, we have unwittingly created greater suffering for ourselves. Tonglen, or the practice of sending and taking, reverses this process of hardening and shutting down by cultivating love and compassion. In Tonglen practice, instead of running from pain and discomfort, we acknowledge them and own them fully. Instead of dwelling on our own problems, we put ourselves in other people's shoes and appreciate our shared humanity. Then, the barriers start to dissolve. Our hearts and minds begin to open. Before presenting the formal practice of Tonglen, I would like to discuss a few ways that you can begin to incorporate the Tonglen outlook into your daily life. After all, how you lead your life with maitri and compassion for both yourself and others is really the point. What's more, if you train in the outlook on a daily basis, you will find that the formal practice comes much more naturally. Trungpa Rinpoche used to tell his students to live their lives as an experiment. In other words, be inquisitive, be open and without expectations. Then see what happens and learn from your experience. For this reason, I often suggest that students choose a limited amount of time, say 3 months or a year, to work with the Tonglen approach, just to see how it affects their lives. But don't think that you will be able to perfect the practice in such a short time. Tonglen is really a practice for the rest of your life. Practicing sitting meditation or shamatha vipassana a little bit every day is a good way to start training in the Tonglen attitude. It's a way of checking in with your state of mind, like holding up a mirror to yourself. Sitting cultivates both absolute and relative bodhicitta. As an absolute bodhicitta practice, it teaches us not to grasp at thoughts and emotions as solid. As a relative bodhicitta practice, it teaches us maitri and compassion for ourselves. In general, it's not a good idea to start doing the formal Tonglen practice until you have a good grounding in sitting meditation. You especially need to cultivate steadfastness, the courage and patience to sit with whatever arises during meditation. Otherwise, you might be knocked off your cushion by the emotions that Tonglen provokes. For that reason, it is always suggested that you begin and end with sitting meditation whenever you do Tonglen. Even if you're not on a cushion or in the meditation hall, you can experiment with the practice of mindfulness and awareness. You can use it as a tool to get in touch with what you are feeling in the present moment. For example, sometimes when I'm alone or find myself in a quiet setting, taking a walk in the woods, gazing out my cabin window, or sitting on a bench by the ocean, I let go of my thoughts and try to see what lies underneath them. Actually, this is the essence of mindfulness practice. Always coming back to the immediacy of your present experience and letting go of thoughts and judgments about it. You will probably discover there is something that remains after you drop the thoughts and the storylines. What's left is the immediacy of the sense perceptions, sight, smell, touch, and so on, as well as a feeling or mood. For example, perhaps the feeling underneath your thoughts is self-hatred. Consequently, when thoughts begin to bubble up, they sound like, quote, bad, bad, or good, good, or should, shouldn't, unquote. When you become aware of such thoughts, you just let them go and come back to the immediacy of your experience. This in and itself is the practice of maitri, or making friends with yourself. I'm a big fan of making aspirations. I think they are very helpful on our path because they help us to stay in touch with our motivation to develop bodhicitta. The Lojong slogan, quote, 2 activities, one at the beginning, one at the end, unquote, suggests beginning and ending each day by reaffirming your motivation to dissolve barriers, to open your heart, and to reach out to people. When you wake up in the morning and go to bed at night, you could make an aspiration. You could use your own words to repeat a traditional aspiration, such as the 4 limitless ones, or the Bodhisattva vow. Sometimes you may feel the formal practice of Tonglen is too much for you. In that case, you could simply make the aspiration, quote, "One day may I be able to open my heart a little more than I can today," unquote. With this approach, there is no blame or self-reclamation. There is just a sincere wish to grow. Equality practice is a way of connecting with others and realizing that you and they are in the same boat. It is a simple human truth that everyone, just like you, wants to be happy and to avoid suffering. Just like you, everyone else wants to have friends, to be accepted and loved, to be respected and valued for their unique qualities, to be healthy, and to feel comfortable with themselves. Just like you, no one else wants to be friendless and alone, to be looked down upon by others, to be sick, to feel inadequate and depressed. The equality practice is simply to remember this fact whenever you meet another person. You think, quote, "Just like me, she wants to be happy. She doesn't want to suffer," unquote. You might choose to practice this for a whole day, or maybe just for an hour or 15 minutes. I really appreciate this practice because it lifts the barrier of indifference to other people's joy, to their private pain, and to their wonderful uniqueness. In The Way of the Bodhisattva, the great Indian teacher and poet Shantideva stresses the importance of meditating on the equality of self and others in this way. Strive at first to meditate upon the sameness of yourself and others, and joy and sorrow all are equal. Thus be guardian of all, as of yourself. Jeffrey Hopkins, the Dalai Lama's translator for 10 years, tells a story about traveling with him in the West. Wherever he went, His Holiness would repeat in English, quote, "Everyone wants happiness, doesn't want suffering," end quote. He would go to an airport or a lecture hall or a news conference and say, quote, "Everyone wants happiness, doesn't want suffering," end quote. At first, Jeffrey thought, quote, "Why does he keep saying this?" end quote. Because it seems so simplistic and ordinary. But after a while, the message began to sink in, and he thought, quote, "Yes, I need that," end quote. It is simple, but it is also profoundly true, and it was exactly the kind of teaching he needed to hear. At first, his practice might seem commonplace or shallow to you, but believe me, it's a real eye-opener. It humbles us because it shines a spotlight on our habit of thinking that we are at the center of the world. When we acknowledge our shared humanity with another person, we connect with them in a surprisingly intimate way. They become like family to us, and this helps dissolve our isolation and aloneness. The practice of sharing your heart is twofold: sharing happiness and accepting pain. For the first, when anything is delightful in your life, you wish that other people could share it. For the second, when you feel any sense of suffering, you think that many other people are also suffering and you wish that they could be free from it. This is the very essence of the Tonglen outlook. When things are pleasant, think of others. When things are painful, think of others. If this practice is the only thing you remember after reading this book, it will benefit you and everyone you come in contact with. When you experience any kind of pleasure or well-being in your life, appreciating a bright spring day, a good meal, a cute baby animal, or a nice hot shower, notice it and cherish it. Such simple pleasures can bring us a lot of joy, tenderness, and a sense of relief. We have many of these fleeting golden moments in our life, but we usually speed right past them. So the first part of the practice is just to stop, notice, and fully appreciate them. Next, you make the wish that other people could also enjoy them. As you do this practice more, you will probably find yourself noticing these moments of happiness and contentment more and more. When you practice giving in this way, you don't bypass your own pleasure or enjoyment. Say you're eating a bowl of delicious strawberries. You don't think, "Oh, I should really be enjoying these so much." Think of all the other people who don't even have a piece of bread to eat. Instead, you should think, "Wow, this is a fantastic strawberry. I've never tasted anything so delicious." You can enjoy your strawberry thoroughly, but then you could think, "I wish everyone else could have this enjoyment. I hope that they could have a chance to enjoy this too." You could also think of a personal possession that gives you a lot of pleasure, such as your favorite sweater or your favorite tie. Then imagine giving it away to people that you meet. This practice isn't about actually giving anything away, because you are working at the level of the imagination, but it puts you in touch with your habit of grasping, shutting down, and not wanting to share things with others. In this process, you develop confidence in your own inherent richness, the fact that you could always have a lot to give to others. Treya Wilbur describes this kind of giving practice in the book Grace and Grit, which is about her battle with terminal cancer. She had already been doing Tonglen for a long time. One day, she lost a gold star necklace that her parents had given her, which was like a good luck charm because she had worn it through all her most difficult times, chemotherapy, and operations. When she couldn't find it anywhere, it seemed like a bad omen and she became depressed. But based on her experience of Tonglen, she suddenly got the idea of visualizing millions of these stars and giving them away to benefit everyone she met. During the process of practicing in this way, she became acutely aware of her habitual patterns of desire, attachment, and clinging, and she began to give away anything for which she felt a momentary attachment. This didn't always help her overcome her clinging, but through this work she developed compassion for everyone else like her who had good intentions but couldn't quite live up to them. Through this practice that she discovered through her own insight, she was able to get over losing the star and most importantly learn the joy of dropping attachment and giving to others.